Welcome to the Be Your Soul podcast. I'm your host, Sky Bradshaw, and today we're exploring a powerful and often tender part of growth, the space between discomfort and calling. This episode, Choosing Expansion, Making Room for Growth, invites us to look at how growth rarely arrives without friction. When something within us begins to shift, when a calling starts to emerge, it often asks us to make choiceful decisions before we feel certain or comfortable. That in-between space where clarity hasn't fully arrived, but the pull forward is undeniable, is our invitation for growth. Today, I'm joined by Noelle Mosby, an Ayurvedic student whose path has unfolded through creative expression, deep self-inquiry, and a growing devotion to the healing arts. From the art of tattooing to Ayurveda, sound healing, and yoga, Noelle's journey reflects what it means to listen inward while navigating real-world discomfort that often accompanies expansion. Together, we'll explore how intentional choice supports growth, why getting into uncomfortable spaces can be a meaningful teacher rather than a deterrent, and how learning to trust yourself in moments of transition allows your path to open with clarity, care, and alignment. But before we dive into the Unclouded Heart segment for spiritual messages of wisdom, let's invite ourselves to become present in this moment within our body, mind, and energy. Take a moment to invite yourself to take some deep and cleansing breaths. In through your nose and out through your mouth. And in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, invite your mind, body, and energy to relax, 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 relax. Relax, relax. Relax, relax. Relax, relax. Relax, relax. And as we move into this space of complete relaxation, we open up our energies to the ancestors, loved ones, and friends to come together today to heal and guide us and lift us to the highest version of ourselves in the light of the universe, so we may hear what we need to hear, know what we need to know, connect how we need to connect, and be what we need to be for our highest and best good, and the highest and best good of all involved, as we open up space to heal and harmonize. Choosing expansion, making room for growth. There are moments in life when growth does not arrive as clarity, but as quiet disruption. A subtle restlessness that gently presses at the edge of what feels familiar. A knowing that something within you is shifting, even if you cannot yet name what is being asked of you. Expansion rarely announces itself with clarity. It often arrives as an inviting uncomfortableness, a gentle signal that what once fit no longer aligns in the same way. This is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something is changing. And if we listen early enough, we don't have to deem something as bad in order to recognize that we want better. We just make choices and decisions to grow because we deserve more. Uncomfortableness carries wisdom. It is the body, the heart, and the energy saying, I've grown beyond this space. It is not meant to alarm us or push us into urgency. It's meant to invite awareness. When we honor uncomfortableness as information rather than a problem, it becomes a powerful motivator, one that allows us to choose growth before pain becomes the teacher. There's a difference between uncomfortableness and discomfort. Uncomfortableness is a recognition. There's something we have outgrown. Discomfort arises when that recognition is ignored for too long and pain sets in. When we stay in places that no longer nourish us out of habit, fear, or learned behaviors, uncomfortableness can slowly harden into discomfort. And discomfort often carries distress, strain, or suffering that requires healing rather than simple redirection. This is why listening early matters. Growth does not need to be forced by pain. There's a moment when it becomes clear that the container you're holding space in no longer fits who you are becoming. Growth begins the moment you allow yourself to tell the truth about what is no longer supporting you, not with judgment, but with compassion, curiosity, and clarity. Uncomfortableness is not the opposite of alignment. Very often, it is the doorway. There's a wisdom in the space between what has been and what is forming, a space that asks you to listen, choose with care, and trust yourself even before the path is fully visible. Growth does not ask you to suffer to earn it. It asks you to participate. Each choice you make in response to uncomfortableness, each moment you choose awareness over avoidance, creates room for expansion without unnecessary strain. Growth becomes a collaboration rather than a correction, a co-creation with your authentic self and the universe that is held in your heart center. Someone once told me that spirit brings us messages in 3 ways: with a butterfly, a baseball bat, or a brick wall. The butterfly is light and gentle. It's the quiet nudge, the soft curiosity, the subtle uncomfortableness that invites us to pay attention. But our lives can become busy, so cluttered that we miss the butterfly altogether. Instead, we tend to wait for the baseball bat, the louder interruption, the harder lesson, the moment that forces awareness. And if we continue to ignore what's unfolding there, eventually we meet the brick wall, the experience that stops us in our tracks and demands change. This is an invitation to learn how to follow the butterfly, to open yourself to your callings while they are still gentle, to listen early, to explore, to get curious, to make small aligned choices before the lessons get louder. Growth does not need to arrive as force. When we respond to the whisper, we rarely need the impact. Expansion becomes far more graceful when we allow it to unfold before it becomes a collision. Let this be a reminder. You do not need to wait for discomfort to justify change. You do not need pain to validate growth. When you respond to uncomfortableness with care and intention, you create opportunities instead of wounds.
Ready to explore what it truly means to work with your mind, body, and energy together as an integrated system? The Be Your Soul Classroom, created by Sky Bradshaw, is an online learning space designed to support self-awareness, spiritual growth, and embodied understanding through practical, soul-centered teachings. Inside the classroom, you'll find a growing collection of online courses and offerings that explore energy awareness, intuition, personal alignment, and conscious living, each designed to meet you exactly where you are. Courses blend written lessons, video teachings, guided meditations, reflective exercises, and experiential practices, allowing you to learn in a way that feels grounded, accessible, and alive. Whether you're deepening your relationship with energy, strengthening intuition, or learning how to apply spiritual awareness to everyday life, the Be Your Soul Classroom offers both structure and spaciousness for your journey. Many courses are available on demand, so you can move at your own pace. while select offerings also include live Zoom sessions for those who enjoy learning in community and real-time connection. This is a space to return to yourself again and again with clarity, intention, and care. Visit beyoursoul.org to explore the Be Your Soul classroom and discover the courses that support your next season of growth.
Today, I'm joined by Noelle Mosby, whom I've known since she was a teenager. And from the very beginning, she has been deeply curious about self-understanding and inner growth. Over the years, that curiosity expressed itself through the art of tattooing, a creative path that allowed her to flourish and reflect inward in beautiful and meaningful ways. That journey has since opened into a calling towards the healing arts, including Ayurveda, sound healing, and yoga. She is currently an Ayurvedic student, standing at the beginning of a powerful path rooted in listening, intention, and self-trust. I'm so grateful to have her with us today and to share this conversation about growth, choice, and honoring what's calling us forward. Welcome. I am so glad to have you here today. I am excited for this conversation. We had a little pre-conversation and definitely have just been really tuning into what you've been putting forward and just the beautifulness and the growth that you've gone throughout your life. I've known you a really long time, as long could be. And I just thought it would be really great to have a conversation with you about that vulnerability of growth and possibilities as far as like understanding the spaces between, where we are right now and where we see ourselves and how uncomfortableness can motivate us sometimes.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to have this conversation. And I mean, many people have a drawn connection to you, but I feel like you've been a silent mentor in my growth journey for many years, like you said. And so if it wasn't for you, there's a lot of things that I wouldn't have been able to conquer. So thank you for that. And I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. I always say I just hold the light and let you do the work. So that's kind of where it's been, which you've done an amazing job at. And a lot of times growth doesn't have a distinct clarity, but it has a little bit of uncomfortableness, like a sense that something no longer fits or it's not working the way that it used to. And I thought it might be interesting for people to hear if you've had moments in your life where that uncomfortableness came forward and how did you, transition it from that compression into an invitation in order to be able to expand into the spaces that you are.
I think that's a very in-depth question for me, just because I've had many moments like that. I think it all kind of started in college, about 5 years ago or so. And I was in the depth of university and COVID had hit. And it just starts with that gut feeling, that gut intuition, the knowing that just something isn't as it should be, or as you thought it was going to present itself for you. I had this big grand vision for what my college experience was going to look like. I had people telling me what college would be like, and I went into it really expecting that was how it's going to go, and it was far from it. And once you get that, at least for me, I think when you get that stomach feeling where it just doesn't sit right with you, you kind of have to pick and choose your battles in that moment, and it can be hard. It's a process of going against the grain, against what you thought for yourself was going to be the case, what other people thought for you was going to be the case. And college was a big turning point for me. I knew pretty much instantly going into my second year, that this wasn't for me, that the life that I had constantly put myself in this box that other people wanted me to be. And as I started realizing that I was honestly living somebody else's life just because of expectations, just because of wanting to make other people happy, it started to eat away at me. And honestly, COVID was a good experience for me because I learned a lot about just where I wanted to be in life, and a lot of time sitting around wondering like what's next for you. I feel like a lot of people had that feeling, but I ended up coming home from college and kind of like dropping out in a sense. And my parents were not all too happy about that, as you can imagine, as it usually goes. But I mean, you could talk to a lot of people who've known me my whole life, and I'm just very like independent, I just want to do like my own thing. And I don't really like to be going with like the flow of things. And so when I realized that I was kind of in like the trajectory that everybody else was in college, it kind of just like ate away at my like authenticity, my drive for wanting something more unique for myself. And I started, going to therapy and looking at things in a different perspective and getting other people's perspective. That's kind of around when I started seeing you, and we did a lot of energy work and kind of fine-tuned my intuition. I think that takes a lot of work to really like get in tune with yourself and find what that means. There's a lot of mixed confusion, a lot of mixed feelings. And I came home and just started like, wishing and hoping for something to kind of come about for myself. And I stumbled upon tattooing, and I sat with myself for a long time and really was like, what do I want in my life? What do I want to do? And the words that kept coming to me were just like, I've always wanted to be something creative. I always wanted to do something in that realm. And that growth period of like sitting in the unknown is always hard to sit in. But the longer you sit in, and I think you gain a lot of more perspective. A lot of people want to rush out of that period of uncomfortability. You don't really know where you're going. You don't know what to do. And you start listening to outside perspectives. You start going with the flow in the funnel of what other people are doing. I had many, many times where I was like, did I make a mistake? Should I go back to school? Should I, follow what all my friends are doing? And then that panic sets in of like, everyone I know my age is doing one thing and I'm over here trying to do another. And I can't say my parents at the time fully supported me, which is always hard as well. And so you're trying to like combat that, as well as like the true knowing of, I know that I want something different. I know. And that's hard. It's hard to like sit in. And I had a lot of back and forth, and that's why I was working with a therapist and kind of trying to like figure it out. You feel very lost in your 20s. I think it's like a very big transition period for a lot of people. And so there's many times I sat in that like uncomfortable like growth period, many jumps in the future from that period of like going from one job to a next. And we can talk about that further, but I just was like, you just sitting with yourself and really like at the time I didn't meditate. I wasn't like in tune with that side of myself yet. So kind of just like journaling is what kind of helped a lot with where I am today. I journal every single morning. It's part of the daily routine that I have. And I think it helps get out a lot of that mental toxicity, mental gunk, you can call it, like out of your body and onto pages where you can. I've never read my pages back. I've never looked at them again. And I don't think people should. I think it's really just to like get it out on paper and kind of release it from yourself. And that's so much power in itself to kind of give yourself a breathing room from day to day and waking up with that, like, what am I going to do today? What's happening today?
And I think that system of like pause, reflect, reconnect, like that giving yourself room, because a lot of times, even with intuitions, a lot of times people will get this nudge and then they rush towards whatever the thing is, instead of letting it fully form and really open into other spaces. So by sitting with it and going like, is this mine? Is this what I'm being told? Is it my shoulds that are making me make these choices and decisions? Then we can give that uncomfortableness room to tell the full story. What's uncomfortable? Why? Where is this coming from? Not immediately just assuming the first thing. And I think when we use that reflection period to go like, is this a good decision? Is this not? Is this, we allow ourselves like that grace of the true expansion, because when we act too quickly, then usually we're like jumping from thing to thing to thing. If we wait too long, then we're in suffering from it. But there's that sweet bridge that, where we feel it, explore it, ask it what it needs to tell us, and then create the action that's really powerful.
And I think that there's like a power and also like I mean I'm fully guilty of jumping at the first little instance, and it's kind of like a learning process. I think that the more you kind of fumble and make the mistakes is kind of where a lot of growth comes from as well. Is yeah, when you're lost and you're trying to grasp at straws, like I've started 105 businesses behind closed doors that no one will know about, but like they never went anywhere, but I tried my hardest, and in the moment I just like it's that feeling of wanting something for yourself. It's that feeling of wanting something different than what's being offered to you right then and there. And the falling down and getting back up is the most important part. You know what I mean? If you keep falling down and you don't, again, sit back, look at the experience, realize that that was just another, you know, it's just another opportunity to make another decision. I forget where I've learned the quote or who quoted it or whatever from a long time ago, but I came across something one time that it was just like, every day, every moment of the day, you have two decisions to make. You know what I mean? You go left, you go right, you pick this, you pick that. And there's no way of knowing in the moment what is truly right. I mean, you can sit with yourself as much as possible and slowly fine tune what you feel like is the right thing to do for yourself, for others, depending on the situation. But nothing bad will happen from picking one or the other.
Right.
Then the next day you're over here on the left side, just there's two more opportunities to change the path. And you can curve back this way. Like there's no one saying that you can't do that. You know what I mean? And if there are people saying that, don't listen to them, because it's like you should listen to like your true self and what you really want. And again, there's always in each of those decisions, there's a moment of reflection, but that is what calmed a lot of the nerves and the scary feeling I had about growing up just in general, because the feeling of like jumping into the big world and not making the right decision was always something that made me the most panicked and about just like moving forward in my path. And once I heard that, it was very much so like, okay, like every moment of the day, every second, every day, like I get to wake up and I get to, you know what I mean? Is it this or is it that? And like there's no right or wrong. There's no one like gonna come for you and tell you that that was wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it just is like, okay, well, and if it doesn't sit with you that day, then you know that, okay, now it's just time to like move over here. And the path is kind of just this ever going like river, this ever going like flow, and to fall into that like flow state rather than getting caught up in the do's and don'ts and the rights and wrongs is kind of where I urge people to be in. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a better state of mind.
Yeah. And I usually like to remind people there's technically no wrong path. The only difference is you have like the shortcuts, you have the long way, you have the beautiful path. There are lots of different ways to get to the same destination. And so even if you take the detour and really didn't have to, so to say, there's value in that. There is growth in that. If you try and shortcut it, you can probably guarantee you're going to circle back around and go back through some of those things, but it doesn't make that wrong. It just says like in that time, that's where you were trying, what you needed. It's just all in those spaces. And of course we do the inner work to get into alignment, to say like, well, I would like, this to come with grace and ease. I would like this to happen for my highest and best. But sometimes even, the tough spaces are what you needed, to be able to figure it out. If I didn't taste that and know I didn't like it, then, how do I ever grow? How do I ever expand? How do I ever know?
Yeah. And then I think I learned a lot of that from you and our energy work that we've done together, in terms of like, you just kind of have to like try it out, and whether you believe in some sort of like fate or not, I definitely do. And I know that I will get to where I was supposed to be regardless. You know what I mean? And I think some people get lost in the like, oh, but but what if, you know what I mean? What if it doesn't work out that way? And it's like the universe or whatever magical being you want to like put in replacement of that is really working for your, like you said, your highest and best good. And you will end up in the position that your heart truly believes in, your gut truly believes in, you know what I mean, where you're meant to sit. And I
Mm-hmm.
tell myself every day I wake up and I'm like, it will always work out. Everything will always work out. I don't know how, but every day. And that's like, I mean, I didn't always say that to myself, but the past couple of years that I've woken up and said it every day, like I truly start to believe it. You try to
Mm-hmm.
like trick your mind into, I'm a big believer in tricking your brain into like thinking the most positive thinking, whether you really believe it in the moment or not, you will eventually believe it if you keep trying to tell yourself that. And I again, you lose that sense of like external anxiety from just telling yourself that like no matter where I end up, it's where I should be, it's what I should
Mm-hmm.
be doing, and it's kind of like what I need in the moment, like you were saying, and sit with that. Like, you know what I mean? It's okay
Yeah.
that it doesn't necessarily always feel like, or oh, I want to be all the way over there, but why am I not there right now? Like all of it's part of the journey, like you were saying. I wouldn't be where I am today without all the hardships that I've had to overcome and go through in life. And we wish a lot of the times, oh, like my life would look different if blah, 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 or if I didn't go through this, I would be here. And I think it's just all part of your story, all part of your fate, the part of what we're supposed to be doing here on Earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We agreed to be human for a
Yeah.
reason. And part of that sort of like recognition is like, true positivity is that thought process. Everything has a solution. True positivity isn't like nothing bad will ever happen or nothing I don't like will ever happen, because we live on a planet with billions of other humans. So, things are going to happen. But the truth in true positivity is like that everything will be okay. I can create a solution. There's nothing that, if I'm in my center and connected to the universe, there's nothing that I can't align to get to that place with myself. And I think that takes a lot of self trust. And so, what was something that really helped you build that self trust? Was it the therapy? Like what can you say about how you built your self trust?
I mean, that's a good question. Therapy was great and helped me through a lot of like the thickest of my hardships and where I was in that mental time and space. But I think that from being somebody who's very independent, you know what I mean? You look around and try to gauge what other people can kind of like help you with or offer. And I just didn't really ever see myself in a place where I wanted to take, I don't want it to sound bad, but like you don't want to take advice from people who aren't wishing the best on you and also doing what you would like to do. You know what I mean? To listen to somebody who's doing the direct opposite of what you want to be and what you want to do is probably not the best person to listen to, in that moment. And
It can be right for them, but it's not right for you.
oh,
That's
yeah, yeah. And like there's going to be someone who aligns very well with them. There's going to be someone that aligns very well with me in what I'm doing if I just stick to my authentic truth, you know what I mean? And it wasn't easy to find, but the more that I sat with myself and didn't kind of outsource, you know what I mean? Like you get anxious and then you're like, what should I be doing? You know what I mean? You start asking people around you. And I think that is kind of where you lose the self-trust. The self-trust comes from the quiet moments that you sit and you can be in tears. You know what I mean? The times that I've sat by myself and been in tears or been angry or whatever, and you're just very confused. You know what I mean? It's not a nice feeling by any means, but those are the times that, you wake up the next morning, you put a smile on your face, you take a breath and you realize like, wow, that, you know what I mean? That wasn't the end. You know what I mean? That wasn't the
right.
end all be all. And like those moments kind of helped me redefine like what was best for me in that moment. And every time I like didn't outsource that questioning that I had and kind of went inward instead of outward were the times that more answers came to me. And when I started to kind of like find, of course, there's times where you like need to ask outsource questions and stuff like that. But, if you, I'm lucky to be able to have learned at a younger age than I feel like a lot of my friends and stuff, that if you just kind of go inward rather than outward, there's a lot that comes up. There's a lot that you can start to question and redefine for yourself. And I think that like think of it kind of like a sticker chart, you know what I mean? Every like the more times you add like a gold star of like, wow, that really felt good to myself. Like, wow, that really felt like, even a centimeter closer to where I want to be, are the times that you start to be like, oh, like they're adding up. You know what I mean? They're adding up. And that is to me self-trust. That is like what took so long to realize, that was all the times that I just thought it was easier to follow the grain, or thought it was
Yeah.
easier to ask somebody who wasn't in my position what I should be doing. And like
Yeah.
they can never really offer you what you need in that moment. Only really yourself can, or somebody in a very similar position, which is also hard to come by.
hmm I think, one of the things I like to remind people in those positions is that advice should not be instructions. And so if we look at like, even, as you were saying, like outsourcing, like if we're deferring our choices to what someone tells us, then we are deferring our power, like, oh, if you say I should do A, B, and C, and I feel like that is instructions to me, then I'm not trusting myself. But if I go, okay, well, what would you do? What would you do? What would you do? And then I hear all of those things and take what feels right to me and kind of create a little calabash or gumbo of it and go like, well, now through seeing through a lot of different lenses, I can make this decision, but it still comes from me. I'm not deferring my decision to what they say. And I think especially in, you know, certain situations that, people believe that if they give you advice that you have to follow it or that it is instructions, and that can really change our self trust as well, because we're like, am I doing it wrong if I don't do it exactly the way they told me?
Yeah, and I like, it's important too to kind of like assess your circle. You know what I mean? Assess
Mm-hmm.
like who you have around you, who's there's I've always kept my circle extremely small. And I think that there's power in not telling the world your next steps, or not telling everybody that comes into contact with you like what you want to do. It becomes confusing to yourself and to your mind of like, wow, I have 800 people that I asked and I'm getting 100 different answers. Like it's a lot to funnel through. When if you
Mm-hmm.
keep your circle small, and when I say small, like there, it's small because I've really intently sat with myself on each person in my circle and said, do they have my best interest at heart? Do they have, you know what I mean? Do they want to see me succeed? Like, regardless of my path, do they want to see me
Mm-hmm.
succeed? Do they love me unconditionally? Do they want to see growth and just be happy for me, regardless of whatever direction that ends up being? And it's kind of sad and scary in the moment, because you start to dwindle out a lot of people who are in it to just copy off you or pick up like little things that you're doing, or just like you said, want to give their input. They just want you to follow exactly what they say because they think that they're, the most right. And they may be the most right for themselves, but they may not be the most right for you. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that there's power in, you know what I mean? Like, yes, outsource. Yes, ask questions. It's not all inward. You know what I mean? We're a community. We're a group of people on this planet. Like, there's a lot to learn from other people. But I think that keeping in mind when you ask people, like, am I asking them because I want a quick answer? And am I asking them because I want like it to be easy, or am I asking them because I genuinely care and they genuinely care about me?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, not in a selfish way, but just in a way that's like, I don't want to ask just like, honestly, you're better off asking like a random person off the street than somebody like two circles away from you who kind of knows you but doesn't really know what's going on in the thick of it. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather have an answer that's no bias whatsoever than an answer that there is a little bit of bias there. There is
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's watching me on the kind of the outskirts and kind of like waiting for me to ask them so that they can tell me what I should do. You know what I mean? And it's, you only got one life and you're living it to the best of your ability. You might as well keep kind of pushing forward in that way of just like, this is me. This is
The
my like,
authentic self.
yeah, this is like where I want to go. And it, a lot of the times it won't make sense to a lot of other people. Like my whole world is that. Like even my family, like even my family's like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? But they trust me now that I like know what I'm doing for myself. And it may not make a lot of sense to a lot of other people, but now that I've done so many drastic changes in my life that seem crazy to a lot of other people, like then there comes the outer trust too, that people start to like, okay, like she kind of is making the decision that, you know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be permanent, but at least I have gained like a credibility, I guess you could say, for like making rash decisions. Like it wasn't always like that, you know what I mean? And my circle kind of at some points in time questioned me, but for the best good. You know what I mean? They questioned me for just like, am I making a drastic decision? Am I just like going out on a limb because that is the easiest, you know what I mean? Rather than,
But I feel like just in saying that, like some of the words that you use are still that outside looking in words. Because to you, you know, you just we started by saying like you did sit with a lot of your choices and decisions. You didn't make a rash decision.
no.
You just made a decision no one was expecting.
Yeah.
And so like
I guess that's a better way of saying it
right.
rather than just like that's like the old me coming out or whatever.
Yeah.
But like
I do think like just because they might see it as rash internally, because I know you, like you contemplated it, you thought
yeah.
about it, you sat with it. I mean, you know, you didn't just go, today I'm moving and move. Like there was a, you know, you worked through how you felt. And
Well,
so
and that goes along with like the smaller circle aspect. And even
mhm,
before I outsourced or before I did that, I mean, there's been some decisions I sat on with not a soul in the world knowing but me for 6 months at a time. You know what I mean? Just every
mhm,
day journaling about it, mulling it over, kind of just like trying to decide like the minute you start getting an outside perspective, good or bad, doesn't really matter. It kind of starts to like change again, good or bad, doesn't
mhm,
matter. Like, but there's a change that happens when it's like out of your ability of just like sitting with it just yourself. So
yeah.
thank you for correcting me.
No, not correct, not correcting you.
No,
I'm
I
just
mean, but
pointing
like
out.
changing my wording because I appreciate like that is very true. There has been so many jumps in my story that I forget to think about all the times that I, sat in my room with the door closed and kind of just like
Felt your way through. You felt your way through.
feeling it all the way through is really scary, but it is kind of what gets you from point A to point B when there's not always been a lot of people to outsource in general too. Like there's been many periods in my life too that it was just me. It was just me
Mhm,
and my dog, and it was like that also comes with self-trust. Like not everybody has to go through a period where there's not even family to kind of talk to about
mhm,
certain things. There's time periods that I've had where it really was just me kind of like, I don't want to say like fending for myself, but that's how it felt in the moment. You know what I mean?
mhm,
It felt very like lonely, felt very, but there's a power in the loneliness. There's a power in the solitude, I think. Like I had to learn that the hard way too. I didn't used to like being by myself. I didn't used to, I liked community. I liked being around people. And the couple years that I spent like completely by myself, just grinding, just doing my, you know what I mean, working and figuring out
mhm,
really who I want to be and where I want to be and what I want to do in this life. Like, were kind of like the years that like threw me forward in the best way possible. Like, I
mhm,
think that there's a importance of sitting back and kind of like take a year. You know what I mean? Like, I think
mhm,
instead of funneling yourself through to what you think you should be doing or where you should be, there's a importance in just like sit and quiet the mind. You know what I mean? Sit and
mhm.
just kind of like it's going to be chaos. Like it wasn't, I'm not saying like it's easy by any means or that it was clean cut, organized. Like it was messy and angry and sad and lonely and but also beautiful and like just life changing. You know what I mean? To
Mm-hmm.
sit in those time periods and kind of like assess what you need for yourself. You know what I mean? I think that that's like a beautiful process in itself of the growth that between the little pieces, like there was a huge chunk that was definitely like me committing to growth. And I didn't have to do that. I didn't, there's, you know what I mean? I could easily turn around and just like pick something rash and do that, you know what I mean? Until I burn out of that, you know what I mean? But I prioritized not following what everybody else was doing because I knew deep down that there was something that it was meant for me that like hadn't come to fruition yet. You know what I mean? And I waited for that rather than just like picking something because picking something was easier.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And that's that space of going like, when I know, I'll know. And you do have to take the leap. Like when we do know, then that's the time to move. And so staying too long can get messy too. But it is good to, when we have self trust, to stay in those places. So every guest, I asked 3 questions. And the first one is, what do you think it means to be your soul?
I've been thinking about this question for a couple of days now, just because it's such a profound question. And in school right now, in Ayurvedic school, we talk every day about the soul. There's not a day that goes by that it's not soul forward. And I have felt it for a long time that we're just like that the soul is really who we are. And that this like I like to call it a skin suit because it's funny, but like the skin suit that we wear on this earth is very temporary. You know what I mean? It's very temporary. And Dr. Lod, the founder of the Ayurvedic Institute that I'm a part of, he's a true believer, and I am now too, that like when you die, your soul lives on. Like we're eternal. We move on from this, you know what I mean? And we may come back in another lifetime of a different body to pay out whatever, you know, karmas we have and stuff like that. But to be your soul is really like, aside from just your authentic self in this world, it's like make yourself happy, make yourself content with moving forward. Like I'm not afraid of what happens after this because I just am so like it's an honor to be here. You know what I mean? It's an honor to walk this earth. It's an honor to like customize myself with tattoos. It's an honor to like learn from one another and to realize that we're in my belief, like we are all part of one big, you know, picture, one big thing. And we're just teeny little pieces, teeny little stars of this big star, you know what I mean? Walking around. And then when you start to realize that, like, we're all little souls, you know what I mean? We have a lot to
Mm-hmm.
learn from each other, but like aside from that, we're all one, you know what I mean? I really believe we're all one. This is like, we're just different incarnations of the oneness that we are, you know what I mean? And I think that's like beautiful to see in other people. Like, you know what I mean? There's a lot to resonate with other people because at the end of the day, like if we were to leave this, you know, this skin, this reality or whatever, like we are just like all part of the same like mother seed, you know, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
it's just like a beautiful picture to see that. And like my soul is just none of the identifications that we have on this world. My soul is creative. My soul is happy. My soul is joy. It's bliss. It's more than just like I'm a woman. I have, you know what I mean? I'm a
Mm-hmm.
daughter. I'm like I work. Like that's like the surface level. So I think that being in your soul is like being in your true self, in your what we call in Ayurveda your dharma, like your life's duty is kind of just like do that, do your dharma, be your dharma. But at the end of the day, like we move on from that and we're eternal and leave happy, live all the days like very happy, very content with where you're going. You know, it's an honor.
I love that. I love that. So, what is one self care practice that you do to fuel your energy?
I really do work on a lot of breath work, a lot of meditation. In the last couple of months through school and stuff, it's been a almost like a part of the curriculum, I guess you could say. But it's really changed my world. Like, it's really changed my life in terms of like, there's a lot of that comes with centering yourself before the day. There's a lot that comes with setting yourself up for the day in a way that is not scattered, is not all over the place. Bringing yourself back into the center part of your body and whatever that means to you. I sit with myself in pranayama and meditation in the morning to kind of like assess where I'm at for the day, assess my feelings. And again, like in school, the pranayama runs the world. Like, it's really like bringing yourself back to your breath, and it is kind of just like what clears the negative energies away and what sets you up, like, I mean, daily for the day, but just in general, like you can clean a lot of things out of your body, diseases, like mental toxicity, all that kind of stuff is what lives if you don't prioritize that going inward, that the prioritizing of really sitting in that, like we were saying before, like in periods of growth, it's that, but not in the typical meditation that people call it. You know what I mean? So I would say meditation and breath work, as well as just like journaling, like I said, is a big one for sure.
Mm-hmm. And how do you know when you're centered and balanced?
That's a good question. I think when there's less like friction, you know what I mean? From not even just from the day, but just in your like mood, in the way that you operate and everything like that. I think when I am truly in like my balance, there's not a lot of external forces that can really throw me off kilter. I have kind of prioritized giving myself like a bubble around myself that leaves me to just kind of be like, oh, that's, it's okay. Like it's all going to work out. It's okay. So I think that like knowing when you're in your balance is kind of just like knowing again that it'll all work out, but it also, there's nothing that really could take me off my kilter so much so that it destroys like what I've built for myself personally.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for the conversation. It was so good. I'm so grateful to have been able to share you with the listeners, and
yes,
I appreciate you.
Yes, thank you, Sky. And it's just, again, an honor to be here and speak with you for your podcast. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear listeners, for being here, for choosing presence, for listening with openness, and for allowing this conversation to meet you wherever you are on your path. We know you have many places you could spend your time, and we truly are grateful you chose to share this moment with us. A heartfelt thank you to Noelle Mosby for bringing your honesty, reflection, and lived experience into this space. Your willingness to share the early steps of listening to your calling reminds us that growth doesn't ask us to have it all figured out. It asks us to trust ourselves enough to take the next honest step.
Did you know Sky Bradshaw just self-published a new children's book? The Quest for Balance, A Little Energies Adventure, is a heart-centered story designed to help children learn 7 powerful energy tools they can use in their everyday life. Through engaging storytelling, young readers are guided to recognize emotions, build self-awareness, and develop simple practices that support balance, confidence, and inner calm. This book is part of the Little Energies series, a growing collection of supportive resources created to help children and families understand energy in age-appropriate, empowering ways. The series also includes a children's oracle deck, a chakra-aligned journaling guide, a chakra information book, and other tools designed to grow alongside your child. Whether you're a parent, caregiver, or educator, Little Energies offers meaningful ways to support emotional intelligence, resilience, and self-trust from an early age. Explore the Little Energies collection at www.littleenergies.com.
This is work that I've found helpful in my practice, and maybe you will too. It's called the Alignment Bridge. Alignment is what happens when our inner truth and our outer life begin to move in the same direction. Energy flows more easily when our thoughts, words, choices, and actions are supporting our true values and beliefs. That's when life becomes expansive, our system regulates, and we feel a sense of inner peace. When those things don't align, we often feel scattered, drained, overwhelmed, or quietly frustrated, not because something is wrong, but because something is asking to be calibrated. And when that recognition begins to surface, it may be time to break out that trusty journal and begin working with what we call the alignment bridge, the space where awareness becomes understanding and understanding becomes choice. The first action in any meaningful change is bringing awareness to what no longer fits. This usually doesn't show up as pain right away. More often, it feels like an uncomfortableness, as if you've outgrown the way you're thinking, speaking, or acting. And just like a shirt that's become too tight, after a while, you begin to feel the irritation of the constriction. Noticing and reflecting on what no longer works invites you into the opportunity to co-create growth with the universe. Awareness allows you to pause and gently explore what's coming up, to look at what no longer fits, what may need healing or refining, and what still belongs and deserves to stay. Some parts may need to be released, some may need to be sharpened, and some may simply need to be understood more deeply. This isn't about judging or condemning what no longer fits, or shaming yourself for how long you've held on to it. It's about understanding your evolution from the inside out. And this is where journaling becomes especially powerful. You can begin your journaling journey by asking yourself, what feels out of alignment right now? Where do my thoughts and my actions no longer match? What am I continuing out of habit rather than truth? Once that awareness is present, the next part of the process is acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean staying the same. It means recognizing that the choices or behaviors you're ready to change once served a real purpose. They supported you in an earlier season, helping you cope, survive, or grow in the ways you needed at that time. Journaling can help here too, offering that space to acknowledge that history with compassion. You might write about how this pattern once helped you and gently affirm that it no longer needs to carry you forward. In your journal, address this pattern directly. Write a little thank you note for how it once protected or guided you, and lovingly let it know that you're ready to carry yourself forward now. Invite it to rest and return to the place and space from which it came. From that place of understanding, choice begins to feel clearer and more grounded. Rather than asking yourself to change everything at once, alignment invites you to focus on one honest decision, one small intentional action that reflects who you are now, not who you used to be. This might be setting a boundary, a shift in language, replacing an unhealthy habit with a more aligned choice, or a decision to pause instead of push. In your journal, picture a moment where the old behavior would usually take over. Imagine yourself pausing, recognizing it, and choosing an aligned response instead. Describe what you would say, what you would do, how it feels to act from your present truth. This is how alignment is built, not through force, but through coherence. When awareness leads to acceptance, and acceptance opens the door to intentional action, growth becomes something you can partner with rather than resist. Over time, these small aligned choices create a life that feels more spacious, more truthful, and more supportive of who you truly are. Alignment and growth aren't about becoming someone new. It's about honoring who you've already become and having the courage to live from there. May you be well. May you feel whole. May you be blessed. And may you find peace. And may you always be your soul.
If something in today's episode spoke to your soul, you don't have to stop here. Visit beyoursoul.org, where you'll find a wide circle of support. Love Church, our free Sunday gathering, streaming live every second and fourth Sunday. The Be Your Soul classroom, full of self-paced courses, guided journals, and healing tools. Our YouTube channel, home to meditations, interviews, and spirit-led support you can revisit anytime. And of course, all podcast episodes, ready when you need a message, reminder, or a little reconnection. Everything we create is rooted in one mission. When the one is strengthened, the sum is strengthened.